During an earthquake, my dad ran past my bedroom door to save his vintage guitars and left me trapped inside. He yelled about my investments while the house shook like it wanted to split. Months later, when those same guitars were drowning, I made him wait. I was 15, upstairs, and my door frame shifted just enough to jam the knob. The floor rolled. Something heavy crashed downstairs. I slammed my shoulder into the door and screamed. My dad Frank jogged by with a guitar case hugged to his chest. "Dad, I can't get out." He didn't stop. "Get under your desk like we practiced." He made trip after trip. Latches snapped. Cases thumped onto the lawn. At one point, he actually shouted, "Insurance covers injuries, but it won't replace a '65 Gibson." I crouched under my desk while cracks spidered across the ceiling, listening to him rescue wooden strings while I waited to find out if my room would collapse. When the shaking stopped, he counted the cases before he checked on me. Then he tried my handle, swore, and called the fire department. Two firefighters pried the warped frame open. One of them stared at Frank and said flatly, "You left your kid in here?" Frank laughed like it was a joke. "She's dramatic." It was a little shake. Outside, neighbors gathered. "Mrs. Keller shoved cookies into my hands and whispered, 'I'm so sorry.'" Frank heard her and snapped, "You don't understand value." Later, I asked him what he would have done if the ceiling came down. He shrugged. "Then we'd sell the guitars for your medical bills," he said. I was thinking ahead. After that, I stopped trying to convince him he was wrong. I started speaking his language. When he got food poisoning and begged for medicine, I kept my voice calm. "I'm comparing prices," I said. "We need to be smart." He retched for hours while I saved money, and I watched him realize his own logic was a weapon. When he fell off a ladder cleaning gutters, he yelled for help like a kid. I told him I needed to secure the ladder situation first. When his car died on the highway at night, I said I had to get my oil changed before I could risk a rescue. He waited. He fumed. He still called me anyway. The real test came during a storm. His basement flooded, and that's where he stored the collection in a fancy humidity room. My phone lit up. "Please," Frank said, frantic. "Get here. Help me move them. Now." I drove over with my watering can and my little tray of houseplants. I parked. I heard him pounding up and down the basement stairs. Then I watered my plants in the driveway. Next, I loosened the soil with my fingers. Again, he yelled my name from inside. Then a case hit the steps with a wooden crack. Next, I kept pouring, slow and steady. Again, I waited while the basement kept filling. When I finally walked in, water covered the floor. Frank was on his knees, soaked, clutching the Les Paul like it could be saved by love alone. He tilted it and water poured out onto his lap. His face folded into this ugly, breathless sound. He looked up at me. "Why didn't you help sooner?" I set the watering can down. "Living things come first," I said. "Remember?" He didn't scream. He just stared, like he'd finally heard his own voice from the outside. Mrs. Keller knocked later because she'd heard him losing it. She glanced at my face, then the basement, and quietly said, "Sometimes people only learn it by living it." The numbers hit him hard. A shop told him the vintage Gibson was basically done. The rest would cost a fortune and never be the same. The insurance adjuster came and tapped a flood exclusion clause Frank had never read. After the guy left, Frank sat at the kitchen table and stared at one total like it might change if he hated it enough. A few days later, he knocked on my door instead of barging in. "I was wrong," he said. "No guitar is worth more than you." His sister drove in and talked to him for hours. Afterward, she told me, "You don't owe him a clean ending." That was the first time an adult said it out loud. Frank started doing things, not just apologizing. He went to therapy. He taught me to drive on empty parking lots. And over the next months, he sold off almost every guitar and put the money into a college fund in my name. He kept one old acoustic that had been his dad's. "Some things are memory," he said, "not money." We never turned into some perfect father-daughter story. I still remembered screaming behind that jam door while he ran past with cases. He still avoided the basement like it could bite. But the house got quieter, and for the first time, he started choosing people over stuff.